the board leadership and things like that. So first thing I wanted to do is introduce everybody to Kara. I don't know if Kara has, have you met everybody?
Except Deidre.
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 Yes.
Deidre.
Yes.
Okay, Deidre, except for Deidre, yes, because Blaine is Duncan's age. So we
Yes.
spent a lot of time at
That's
baseball
right,
together.
Yes.
David has been in to visit me a couple times and has made sure I knew, and I was excited because I've been using that City on the Hill, or City on the Prairie for some more things. Hank, I've been over and met. Morning, Darren.
Morning.
Yeah.
Stacy text
I'm
me, still
Stacy.
we're good.
Yeah. Then we also have a other new board member, David Stevens, and he may or may not be coming in at some point. And then Leroy isn't here. I don't know where Leroy is. He got his agenda and we actually talked about it. So
Well, I had occasion over the weekend that I needed something at Casey's. He was there and he asked what was, it sounded like he certainly knew about it. So
yeah,
maybe he'll be here yet.
He's running late.
could be running late today. We'll see. Okay, so one of the things we want to talk about is just revisit. You have some new board members, kind of the role of the advisory board. And then we need to actually set new leadership since Sue's no longer on the board. Sue now works for us in the museum area. So you can no longer serve on the board of directors or the museum board, but is obviously here for her knowledge and her enthusiasm. So just kind of an overview of what the job description looks like. When you signed up for the gig, it's really to provide advice to the coordinator of the museum and understand what the direction is and help kind of push that into that direction, whatever that might end up being. And being actively involved with the operations where that's necessary. I know in the past we've had volunteer days and we've done different things. I know a lot of folks have helped with creation of exhibits and bringing in books and doing different things, and I think that's all certainly still part of the job. It's not an everyday day-to-day management of the museum coordinator or any of that stuff, but it certainly is an advised role and to help direct it and guide the museum and make sure that we're in conjunction with what the community wants. You're really supposed to represent the community in this, and you're appointed by the city council, and so that's the idea. And so there's no pay. It's not a glorious job at all, but it is a very important job, and of course we want to make sure that is something that you're on board to do. So one of the things we need to do as far as having a board leadership role, we need a chairman or chairperson, I should say, for the board who would run the meetings. Previously, I think Todd Jost was, and then Sue was for a while, and so now we've got a vacancy there. And then there's also an assistant chair, or not assistant chair, what's the right word? Vice chair, there you go. That would take over and basically step in if the chair was not there. And then also we need a secretary, and I think Stacy is currently the secretary. Yeah. So we need to fill those positions. However much I love meeting with the museum board, I don't necessarily want to chair your meetings for you.
They're so much fun.
I know.
Hey, we're a fun bunch.
You are, no doubt.
Has there been any thought or discussion about Todd Jost resuming?
I have talked to Todd, but the last time I talked to him, he had just gotten his parents moved in to the assisted living. And he was supposed to be having surgery and he's going through the PT for that. He's willing to offer me advice, but right now he doesn't feel like he has time or the physical strength to step into any of this right now.
So that's your answer on that. I think he would be welcomed back if he wanted to, but
He's
And
gonna,
if
it's
he's,
gonna be up to him.
if he's able, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I would open it up for discussion on who would want to be the chair for this prestigious group.
I think I would nominate Mandy Bernhardt.
No. Hey, Leroy.
Hey, Leroy.
Hey, Leroy.
Hi, Leroy. Come on in.
Leroy.
I nominate anybody but myself.
Yeah.
No one ever wants to be the chair. Why is that?
There's a lot of thinking involved in that.
Not really. I mean,
Okay, outline what the chair's job again is. I mean, other than to you lead the meetings.
that's the primary job of the chair. I mean, you would help set the agenda for the meetings, which are quarterly. It's not too taxing, I don't think, but and then work with Kara on what that looks like, I would think would be kind of thing. Is there anything else that you would envision the chair doing?
Not right now. I'm still trying to learn all of this.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I nominate Hank because he's the most experienced.
I'm not experienced, and I will respectfully decline that offer.
But I do think you do a good job, seriously.
I can't do it right now.
Well, this is becoming awkward.
We're staring at you.
Why is everybody staring at me? I am wearing a mask because last week Fred had COVID
Oh,
first part of the week and a breakthrough case, and I've tested and I'm negative since.
okay.
That's
But
good.
anyways, just in case I'm wearing a mask.
You're fine.
Well,
Any takers on chair?
okay. Mandy, I'll be chair if you're vice chair. How's that sound?
I don't know. I feel like I don't have time barely to do my normal job.
I think the biggest thing with this, as far as like, other than running a meeting, I need to know that, and Stacy, I already do this with you and you do this, we just be able to bounce ideas back and forth
Yeah.
as I'm kind of coming up with something,
Right.
because unless there's some sort of special reason, I don't anticipate that we need to meet more than quarterly.
Sure.
So more it's, can you guys both be available to me to like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. What do you think?
Just text or email kind of thing.
Right. I mean, am I
Well-
wrong, Matt?
And
That's-
I'm kind of wondering, because I've been wanting to step back from the secretary spot because I feel like my brain just doesn't work. I used to be a professional secretary, but that's not the way my brain works anymore. And I'm wondering, could that be filled maybe by Sue, like as a paid part of this? Could she be secretary, or is that not? I'm throwing you under the bus, Sue.
No, not a
But I
problem, not
like
a
to-
problem.
No, the other thing is because we will be meeting here, all of our meetings are recorded.
Okay.
So as
no
far as the
notes are-
secretary goes, it's not as pressing to me.
No, because there's always going to be a recording in the minute, of the
Okay.
meeting. So
I'm
taking
just-
minutes and
secretary's
trying
not-
to
Needed, is what you're saying.
possibly, yeah. I mean, you've
Right
got
there.
video, so.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
God. I didn't see that.
See, no one pays
Jeez.
attention to the camera. Yeah, we've been doing this without, and then just to back up from this, we've been doing this with all of our boards and committees. It's kind of something the mayor wanted to do to
Yeah,
improve
Yeah,
no,
ability, and I think
I
it's
agree.
been good, yeah.
it's just
Overall.
painful, just the same.
It keeps us accountable.
Right.
And
No,
because this is a city entity, we have to be public and open. So even if someone can't be here, they can either join by Zoom
Yeah.
or they can watch it later. So anything that we discuss, anything that we plan is out there and available, which is how it should be as a city organization.
Mhm.
So the secretary thing's probably a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, I don't know that needs to be
And then,
super
if we don't do a good job.
pressing. I think like there's some negotiating happening out
Yeah,
there.
we'll say. Do we need to leave the room and let y'all discuss?
There's like some kind of.
we're making
This
deals
is-
over here.
You can do it, it's only quarterly.
All right.
Okay, me and Mandy will do it.
So we
But I'm vice.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
not-
and I'm chair,
Okay. so
and the
we-
big chair.
We would need
she's-
to have a vote on that.
She's my
So
boss.
I need a big one now. Really.
Stacy still wanted to be the chair. Is that? I guess we need to probably do it as a motion.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were drawing straws on
And
that.
well, it's gotten to that, but do I have a motion for Stacy to be the chair?
I'll make the motion.
Hank will make a
Thank you,
motion.
Hank.
We have a second.
Thanks for your
Second.
support.
David will do the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Stacy, you can vote no if you want.
That was gonna be very uncomfortable.
All right, then we have the election of the vice chair. Got
Oh,
any-
I nominate Mandy. Can I do
Andy?
that?
Yes, you can. Do you have a second?
Miranda.
Don't say
Darren's-
that.
Darren has a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, excellent. Then we will put a
Your
fork in the,
treasurer.
put a
Yes,
fork in
okay.
the,
Treasurer.
put a fork in the secretary's position. Yeah.
Until we figure this out.
So we figured it out.
We could vote David in because he's not here.
Yeah,
Ah, man,
Oh, yeah.
never miss a meeting.
that's
That's
right.
true. So he's the secretary. David?
Yeah.
Fill that in. We'll see
I
how it
nominate
goes.
David Stevens is what I wrote down. I've not met him.
I want to touch a little bit on the Friends of the Museum too. So we've had some conversations internally about kind of how this works. I know that in the past, the Friends of the Museum has basically met as a part of the meeting here. Our city attorney isn't super comfortable with that, and I don't know that as the Friends of the Museum is a not-for-profit organization, they're obviously very closely tied together. I don't know that that's gonna work super well for you guys either. I know it's convenient, obviously, to do that. But the suggestion that came down from the city attorney was to have those meetings definitely be separated. Now, I'm not saying you can't use this room and have that meeting right after we're done with this, but there's gotta be a little bit of separation with that. So that's one thing we want to talk about. Also, kind of the financial pieces of it. I don't know if you know how it's structured right now and how it's set up. So it's the way the board is set up for the Friends of the Museum. I think Steve Fast is the chair according to bylaws, and there's really not a mechanism. It doesn't say the museum coordinator or anything like that. It has his name specifically. So he's still technically your chair for the Friends of the Museum. So if that's your organization, I don't care what you want to do, but that'll have to be something you may want to address. Also, how the financials work with that is going to be something you want to make sure you understand where the money is going and how it is. I've got a Friends of the Museum credit card sitting in my desk that I got from Steve.
It's that stuff.
And so,
Has anything been used out of that
No.
account?
not since, it's been a while.
Here. That's the last one I have, but Deidre probably knows better than.
You may have a better answer to that than I do. It doesn't look like there's been anything since like March of last year.
Definitely no credit card stuff has been,
Oh, good. Well, that's
I
good.
went through the ringer trying to get that set up and then, so it's available.
It's there,
I don't want it.
Available.
right?
Sorry.
So, and then you also maybe want to think about how the membership gets done, because we've got a list of active members and everybody it's an annual membership thing. So I don't know if you're actively paying dues on that or not. The city ordinance has it set up that this board will have a certain number of Friends of the Museum on the board. And, I don't know. But from my perspective, to be a board member shouldn't have to have a financial obligation. And so that to me feels a little weird, but I understand kind of why they did it.
I think there's lifetime members because I want to say I'm a lifetime member.
You are.
There are, and there's some people on this list
So
that
that
are
marks one
deceased.
person off.
Like, for example, Raymond Wiebe is deceased. I know that. But then there's people there's organizations on here as lifetime members too. The Community Foundation, the Historical Society, Kiwanis, the city's a member. It's all, there's a list here, but I don't know if you're active, and I don't know how all that needs to work. And
It would be nice to change the wording on the bylaws to maybe the museum coordinator position be chair of that, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, that makes, I think that was
Not a
probably the
specific
intention,
name?
but yeah, I don't know if that's, I didn't know if you were aware of that.
So
I'm
no,
just bringing that to
I
your
was
attention.
not. I was not aware of that.
So that'll be something that the Friends part needs to
Okay.
handle. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and I don't know, financially what all that is, but I assume that it comes back to, well, it's used for museum projects and comes to the city that way. We just want to make sure that it gets clear, it's clear how that relationship works for our city attorney and for our auditors. There were some questions about that. So I'm just putting it out there that probably needs some attention. You guys figure that out. Friends of the Museum can figure that out. That's not our business. You guys are a separate group. So I think there's a lot of advantages to having a Friends group. Just from a transparency perspective, I think it needs to be looked at.
More transparent.
More the better.
And maybe like an email address, like, and a contact at Kiwanis and Community Foundation of when those meetings are to like every member, or.
Right.
Because I don't know if that really was being done prior to this, because I don't think it always just kind of followed directly the board meeting on the second half from when I participated. And it was always kind of confusing to me on, it seemed to kind of blend together to me. It was a little confusing being a new board member.
Yeah, well, I think that having some separation and the Friends kind of figuring out what their structure and role is going to be important. And we can give you the bylaw. I've got copies of bylaws. I really need to give you that credit card probably. It's locked in my desk, but I don't need it. So
Could that be emailed, the bylaws of the Friends to the board members?
I can send you the email copy.
okay. Okay. So that's the Friends piece. Wanted to let you guys know about an upcoming auction and sale. So the city, just in general, museum in particular has a lot of stuff too, but we're kind of going through some spring cleaning. We've got a lot of things left over from a lot of different things. Pieces of equipment that are old that need to be sold, some old supplies and things. So we've arranged for an auction that will be at the end of April. I don't know that we have the firm date. Lepke Auction is going to do a live auction for us. And then we're also selling some stuff on Purple Wave, but that's more equipment thing. There are some museum things. I know there's been some people in the community who've been fired up about what we've cleaned up and what we've put into the auction bin. So I'll let Kara talk a little bit about how that process works with the auction stuff and how that has gone.
We don't need 17 butter churns. We don't need 37 irons like you heat up on the stovetop or you would put in the oven to iron your clothing. I have a cradle mangle and I have a flat mangle. I don't need more than one of each of those. We have 4 flat mangles right now.
What is it?
The ironing, like the big wooden thing that they put the rocks in and they roll the fabric on the rollers and
Old school iron.
old school iron, which when I finally learned what that was, that I would have the world's wrinkliest clothes because that's just really, but we don't need 4 of those. I had Dale Dulkey and Darren Luthi over in the barn with me and we started going through the farm implements. And Dale said, well, you have 5 of those. And I'm like, well, no, I didn't because I don't know what they all are. So he and Darren were giving me a lesson in what these different things were. And we were looking at what's the oldest, what's the newest, what probably comes out of the time period of the Peter Paul Lowen house, because that would be where more of those would come in as far as our collection goes. Gossel has been over, Jerry Taves has been over, everything that we have, they have. They don't have room for anything else. So then it came down to kind of a weeding process. Okay, and again, I relied on Dale and Darren because they know this stuff way better than I do. And we took the extra farm implements out, so we'll be able to auction those off. I have 7 cast iron typewriters right now. I don't think we need 7 cast iron typewriters. We have just upstairs in the Adobe attic, 3 washing machines, 4 old sewing machines, 5 cast iron stoves. And those are the things, we don't need all of those things.
The old sterilizer from the original Salem Hospital.
Oh, my gosh.
Lots and lots and lots of creepy stuffed animals. I have put a bunch of them in Matt's office.
They
Because
are creepy.
he takes the day off and leaves his door unlocked, so. But a lot of those things don't necessarily apply to what we showcase and kind of where our, especially with the limited amount of display space that we have currently. And I've been told I can't buy any more buildings.
Correct.
We're limited on.
Can we
some of
vote
them.
on that?
Yeah, can everybody tell Matt we
No,
need
we
another
don't need
building?
another building right now.
But a lot of those things, because I mean, we have probably 7 or 8 and not different, 7 or 8 cream separators that look exactly the same. We have 6 sausage stuffers that are the long ways with the little tube. I've got 9 that you squish it down. Like, and it fills the, like it's round. We don't need all of those. We don't need 22 teapots, like the kind that would go on.
Sitting up there collecting dust.
So,
Damaged.
Yeah.
right, those are some of the things that are going, I've opened some boxes and I was really excited because according to the label on the box, I was going to be pulling out 1920s glass cut vases. It had a denim jean jacket in it.
Ooh. From the
Like John Denver's.
1980s or
Yeah.
1990s.
I'm pretty sure I wore that jacket in high school. It's long gone, but I'm pretty sure I wore that exact brand and almost that size in high school. So it doesn't fit into what we are currently showcasing, what we have space for. I opened a box and it had stickers on it. And this probably sounds really mean on my part, but I'm like, okay, so somebody had a garage sale and couldn't get rid of it. So they put it in a box and they gave it to the museum.
Yeah.
Well, and the only reason I know this is because I got caught up in the Brady House renovation and they were showing like Brady Bunch shows. I'm pretty sure I had like the juice glasses the Brady Bunch used or something very close to. Again, those don't fit into what our mission is. They're not, 1870 accurate. They're not 1910 accurate. They're not Scheffler store material. So we have a lot of those kind of things and we don't need to hold on to all of those things. We have some pretty significant repairs and rebuilding that need to be done. And by putting these items in the auction, that's going to help give us funds because we had a structural inspection of the shed portion of the Adobe house and I am not to code pretty significantly.
We're not allowed to let anybody in there except workers because
Right,
it's so
right now-
dangerous.
Right now,
Where's the danger?
There's
The mezzanine that's
the
built
catwalk.
around the catwalk.
I believe you.
Oh, yeah, there's one spot, if you stand and you go, the whole
So-
floor goes.
Then it's not that they couldn't walk across the concrete floor, but Ben said for safety aspect right now, I have to completely keep the public out of that. The only people that are allowed to climb up onto that would be workers doing repair. And I was a little bit sick to my stomach looking at that. And I do understand building, but I kind of turned a blind eye to it because I'm like, there's other things I need to do right now. When I was standing there looking, I thought of how much weight we took off of that already.
Right. It
And-
could have collapsed by an hour.
Yes,
Right,
Yes.
and the fact that at
Maybe should
some
have.
point, you had 4 city street worker guys up and myself walking around on this, and we were picking up things and moving things around, and the fact that it had not collapsed.
This is in that west
Yes.
wing.
Yes,
Okay.
and then the studs that run across are at least 2 feet apart without the proper headers. And he said it's just too dangerous. there had been something that had been run through and nobody did any sistering of the floor joists. And he said, it's just dangerous for anybody to be up there.
Is it repairable reasonably?
It is, it will be taking where the current joists are going across and marrying a second joist to it, replacing one header. That will just take the long part where the green wagon sits. We need to replace that with a different size header. And then that will be fine. And then it's just marrying. So it's not tear down, rebuilt. But it's going to take some time and it's going to take some finances to do that. The other really significant project we have coming up that I really want to use the auction to raise money for is the Carriage House at the Scheffler House. The Carriage House, as we started, because we went through and we were cleaning out things, it has termite and dry rot across the whole bottom, pretty much around it at the ground level. The foundation was poured in.
And it's 4 inches. That's the foundation.
Foundation.
Foundation is only 4 inches and, you know, we all know how deep we're, because we don't even hit the frost line at this point with it. Thrasher came out and gave us an estimate of about $65,000 just to go in and stabilize the foundation. That doesn't do anything to take care of the roof. That doesn't do anything to take care of the dry rot, the fact that the bump outs are sagging and don't open properly.
There was no headers that were put in properly. And so basically, if you stand in the driveway and you look at it, you can see it.
It kind of sinks and it sags in the middle.
Right, the roof needs to be replaced. I have pictures from the early 2000s that I'm assuming Stan Harder took of I call it the belfry, up on the top.
The
The
cupola.
cupola.
I'm not even sure with the cherry picker at this point, we can detach that and get it off in one piece. I really, really want to, if at all possible. Nick Hine looked at it roughly. Are you guys all familiar with Nick? And we just barely started talking about it. He thinks we can rebuild it back to the original state, which would be before Bob got his Chryslers and had to cut the door because it wasn't big enough. And then he got another new Chrysler and had to cut another new door. We can take it back to the original for roughly $70,000. Well, that's pretty significant when Thrasher's telling us for $65,000, they could stabilize, possibly, they can't even guarantee it won't fall down when they start on this, possibly stabilize just the foundation. But that doesn't do anything for our dry rot. It doesn't do anything for our roof. It doesn't do anything from where structurally we're sagging.
Termites.
So my other really big kind of significant financial thing right now is to take that down and rebuild it. Take it back to what Bob Scheffler and Ida Scheffler would have had for a carriage house. It would have had one sliding, barn sliding doors. They would have had the side door where they would have stored things. They probably would have had they had upstairs, but we don't even have to go that far with it and put in the second floor. We could do the outside restructuring. And then we have a building that's safe to put the wheelies in, which is right now at AMPI, which if we're going to be showing the Scheffler house, we should have that car there. Darren's
Part of
hit
it.
the mother load because we have found several more Scheffler store items that don't necessarily belong in the house, but they're willing to showcase
Yeah, that's been good.
in the store. And so he's been able to put some things out and they have plans for more. And so we have this opportunity to kind of, with them owning that whole Scheffler space at this point, to really take those store things out and get them out in public again and get them shown. And to put the wheelies in the garage and to have a car that would have, I don't know if they technically had a wheelies. Oh, he had an Overland, didn't he?
I'd have to look on the inside of that.
But I
Covered.
think there's that picture of the first Overlands and he's in one of them. So, I mean, we have the space to put a car back that would have looked like something the Schefflers would have had and have it stored where people can see it.
That would be part of it.
And we don't have to worry about the building falling down on it. So that's part of what I'm working on right now, which is where the auction is going to come in handy. It's going to give us space to get rid of all these extra too many things that we have. And I'm being very careful as I go through things. If there is an ascension number on it, I am going back to the records. I am doing everything I possibly can to contact the families that donated those items to see if someone would want them back. Because there are things that if I were to find some of the things that have been my grandparents or my great-grandparents, I would want them back. And I want to make sure that families have the opportunity to have a say in what happens to their items. If there isn't an ascension number, that's where we're really running into roadblocks, because I don't know where they came from. I don't know the provenance on them because of that. I don't know who to contact to try and get them, to ask, how do you feel about this going to the auction? But I'm not just willy-nilly picking things off the shelves and saying it's going to go. In the Adobe attic, we're in the process of splitting basically everything we have there in half. And if it has an ascension number, it's going on one side. If it doesn't have an ascension number, it's going on the other side. Sue can start going through the ascension records and pulling those, and I can start going through the other description records and try to identify anything else that's on the shelves without a number. But I don't want to throw people's history away. I don't want to throw their culture away. But we can't keep 17 butter churners.
I have heard really good feedback, and when I was at the Christmas open house, people said, oh, it's much easier to walk through and look at things now. And there were several people that said it was just much more organized. And I think it's much more inclusive and group friendly now, even where you're at now, even though you're not done. It's not, it's already more handicap accessible for visitors and groups. And I think it's great. I think that's the right direction to go. And so it has been noticed.
Is it on this structural issue, can you still do tours
Oh, yes.
of the?
I can do the inside of the house and I can do the barn,
But not the
that-
shed.
but not that west
Okay.
extension part.
Okay, well,
Um,
that's fine.
So, and I was supposed to have a school group yesterday, but they had a crisis safety issue on Friday that caused them to have to cancel
Okay.
for yesterday. I've got a homeschool group coming in on the 24th. Sometime in that same week as the 24th, Mrs. Corby's class, they are sounds so weird. If you're not a teacher, you're gonna go, they're using 2-liter soda bottles. And I don't know if they're styrofoam or not, but round balls, and they're creating, they're doing biographies of characters. So like Susan B. Anthony, George Washington, I think Edgar Allan Poe is one, but we're gonna bring those over to the visitor center and have a parent time when the 5th graders get to show them off to their parents. Then I'm gonna have them for 10 days. Hey, come by and check out, the biography characters, and let's get a tour of the Adobe house while we're here. So, I can do that portion of it. The Scheffler house, we're good to go. We cannot open the Carriage House at this point to anybody, and we can't open the west extension. But other than that, everything is fine, and I've had groups in and out. I have people stop by. I subbed last year pretty extensively for USD 410 and running the pool. The kids know my van, and they stop. Like, hey, Mrs. Dool, what do you got? I'm like, hey, come check out what I just found.
Yeah.
And I've taken them out to the house. I brought them in the visitor center, and they keep stopping by, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
I had to fill out a form for advocacy.
Advocacy?
Thank you. Day for the state legislature that the Kansas Museum Organization is working on. And we are a member of that. And, they asked, well, why are museums important? Why should the state continue to fund or care about them? And I'm like, because sometimes they're the last standing, historical and cultural and thing for us, especially small towns. And, we have to get that out there. And I get so excited learning this because I didn't grow up here. I think you're all aware of that. I'm not a Kansas person. Kansas still freaks me out sometimes.
Oh, Dorothy, just don't worry, Toto's fine.
But it's really exciting to me as I'm learning this because I'm not growing, well, that's, how grandma and grandpa talked about that. it's not, it's all new to me and it's really exciting. And I think about the fact that we have kids who can't tell you any of that history. My kids, when we moved here, I had a second, third, and fourth grader. Only one of my children has even been down to the museum and schoolhouse. That's sad. I mean, they've been there now because I make them come and help me, but they haven't been there for school. And think of all the opportunities that we have to teach them about Mennonite history, to teach them about the immigrants that came the decade before the Mennonites and started buying up the plats. And then, you know, think about the people that initially got Peabody settled, where the Mennonites rode in on trains, you know, and got off there. And I've been driving a lot for wrestling, and wrestling is in the middle of nowhere every single time. So I'm driving by myself, and I kind of come up a hill and I look at all this open space, and it's just like, I know I'm in my nice warm heated van and I'm heading to my nice warm heated house and I can throw something in the microwave and I'm good. But how many of these people on an absolute leap of faith either traveled across our country or got in a boat and traveled across an ocean to come to someplace that obviously didn't have paved roads and all this space and took a chance on it and believed in it and had the faith to go through that. And I think that's something that's really important to teach our kids, because I think kids don't have the same resiliency that people used to. And this is something that we can teach them and it can provide an example about. And then you look at, you know, going further in history, like the Schefflers. They had money. They built the new store in 1902. They were supposed to be building the new house. And William went, you know, it's not really fiscally responsible to invest a bunch of money in two things at once. We're going to wait. We're going to make sure the store is going to work. Then we'll build our house. And that's what they did. And just the way he ran the business and how he went about things, there's so much we can teach our kids. And if we don't make these resources available and if we don't maintain them, we're going to lose that opportunity.
Have we,
Go ahead.
we have some history with the Kansas Historical Society of getting grants. And so I don't know.
That is something I am
I
looking
know
at.
we've gotten several. And so that might be something in addition to the auction.
And those, the higher up you go in those type of grants, the more specific of a project they're looking for. So I have to do some work with, okay, so these 5 grants are available. How can I phrase our project to make it fit their parameters to even consider us? And there's some really great giant grants out there, but they're 50-50 match, and we don't have the funds to 50-50 match.
Well, yeah, I don't think we've ever had to do that with this historical society. Again, the Adobe House and the Scheffler House are listed on the Register of Historic Places. And so I think that gives you some leverage to
helps.
say this is.
It does, it helps. But it's just, you know, sometimes what they want to give you money to do is this big. And ours is this big, and I have to figure out how to narrow my language down to make it fit inside their parameters. I was an English teacher, so I can do that.
Yeah. We also have a grant writer that we use, Ranson Financial Services. Actually was on the phone with them before we stepped into this meeting about another grant. So we've got resources to kind of help do that stuff. And we've been pretty successful over the years in writing grants, and hopefully we can continue that. So.
I don't want to dwell on this, but I want to go back to all that stuff that you had. Are you keeping multiples of some things?
Yes.
Obviously, you can't keep multiples of 5 plows and stuff like that. But
I am.
I'm thinking about the butter churns and something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Second question, and then you can answer them both.
Okay.
Do we have anything in place, or do we need to put something in place, not tonight maybe, but so that we don't accumulate like this again?
We do.
Okay.
And let me tell you why I'm going to make sure that happens. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with, if you go through You come into the Adobe house and you go through what I call the barn. I call that west extension the shed. And there's an attic space upstairs. Well, I started going through things and it was getting too much. So I took everything that was in a box out and put it on the metal shelves that are out there because it makes it much easier for me to go through them, sort them, match them together, start that process. There happened to be, because it slopes down and then you have this portion, there was a panel loose. And so I kind of started wiggling and we managed to get it loose. The entire 40 feet front to back in that space is filled with stuff.
Treasures.
Oh my gosh.
And then on the other side,
It's also filled, but they built a shelf in.
and there are two
So this was all
layers
hidden.
hidden
Yeah.
behind
Yes.
the plywood.
The
I'm not-
panels,
Painted over, screwed in, yeah.
You
Oh
know,
my
the
gosh.
psychology of that is so interesting, and
well,
the poverty and the hoarding and the cycles of economic cycles. But there is some fun history to that. of,
there
you know.
is, and I've
I
had,
still am not envisioning where you're talking about
if
this.
you go upstairs over,
This is in the west extension.
no,
No,
No, okay,
so you have the house
yeah.
and the barn, and then you'd have the west extension.
Mhm.
Up above the barn, there's a whole attic space,
Yeah, oh, okay.
and it's in
In the
that,
trusses.
it's in the, what essentially be the crawl space there. And again, I've had Dale Dalkey over there and we started looking at it. One of the cast iron stoves that I have in an ascension record that I've spent 4 months trying to find is behind the panels.
Oh, my God.
and there's this
The
huge.
the door to the sterilizer is on a shelf on the one side, not out with the sterilizer, on a shelf behind the panels. And the panels were screwed into the walls and I got mad, ripped a couple of them off.
What?
There's a
Weird.
giant cash register.
Has to weigh at least
Well,
100
that
pounds.
sounds fun.
Yeah. it
So
does.
there's some really neat stuff in there, but if the one panel hadn't have been loose and I kind of started peeking, I would
There's
not have
no-
even known.
No point
Oh
in
my
storing stuff
gosh.
that way, though. If
No.
you can't see it, you don't know
Yeah,
it's
what was
there.
the
What is the
point?
point?
I think part of it, again, it's the psychology of it. You don't want to turn away somebody who's standing there offering you things that are, that they feel, well, these are my great grandmas and these were
Right.
important.
Mhm.
So I think there was some, and when I go through the Ascension records and I look through the dates of when we had directors, I think there were times when things were just dropped off. And so they just took them. And we have to be, because of the space that we have, because of what we can highlight, we have to be more selective. So yes, we do have to write a little more detailed collective, like collection. How do we do this? What we take, what we don't take. Like with,
That might give you a little more backing when somebody says.
Right.
yeah,
And you say, well, it's, according
you
to,
do-
I have 6 of these and I.
right.
Right.
And like the sausage stuffers, there's like 4 different styles. Well, I'm not gonna just keep one. I wanna make sure I keep, at least each style and hopefully be able to have the space for 2. Butter churns. There are several different styles of butter churns. And I wanna get a couple of the ones that are like the glass jars where you can, because I would like to be able to make butter with the kids when they come over. And the outdoor oven works. So maybe we can make cornbread and butter and that can be one of the projects when the elementary school kids come over. So it's not that, well, I'm only going to keep one. I don't think as far as all the aluminum tea kettles, I probably only really need to keep 2. It doesn't matter that they're like different styles. They're kind of all the same time period. The cream separators, I have 5 that look exactly the same. So that's where some of that whittling down is going to come from. And I am not doing this on my own. Like I said, I've had Dale, I've had Darren, Dan Dalkey's been out, Morgan Marler, who's the water department. She's going to come over and go through things with me because she's been doing this since she was a little kid with her parents.
Jerry
So
Taves.
Jerry Taves has been.
Jerry Taves has been over and he's
Tim
gonna,
Unruh's been there.
yeah, Tim Unruh's been in there. So Darren's been my go-to for a lot of the Chef for Store stuff because he knows that history as far as the store goes better than any of us. So we've got and Sue's trying to prompt me, I will bring up Dr. Flippen. So I'm trying very hard to utilize the people that are gonna know best and go through it that way. And we do have to rewrite our collection policy because unless Matt gives me another building.
Not doing it.
I do, just to add on that one quick thing. I don't want to necessarily discourage, like, there could be a real treasure, and then if they think, oh, they're not taking anything, they're busting at the seams, like, maybe we could say things that we would still be interested in, or, I don't know, like, something that, a way to
Switching
contact
out.
you, like, don't hesitate to maybe send an
No.
email.
And I would prefer like, hey, can you come look at what we have? Versus, them boxing it up and bringing
Well,
it to me,
right.
because then that gets harder because then you gotta go through everything that's in a box.
Right, just like
No.
maybe send you some pictures.
Send me
email
some pictures
or-
or, grandma died and we're getting ready to clean out the house. Can you come over and take a look at this? Yes, absolutely. I can tell you what we'd be interested in. You can determine if you want to give that to us.
Right, and maybe you could point out something that may be of value, like, that might, a way to encourage people to do that is you could say, hey, you might want to get this appraised, this is something.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm learning all of this. I can't begin to tell you what some of these things are worth.
Well, just,
But I can tell you like what I'm finding in notes, what I made fun of Matt's wife, Rebecca, for reading a cookbook over the weekend. And then I got the cookbook and I love it. It's the Russian food and folk,
Oh, yeah.
by Voth. And I've been reading that at night and I'm just like, and it's so cool. And I kind of made fun of her at first. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't care if it's a cookbook. This is really cool because it talks about, and I don't necessarily know some of the people that are talking in it anymore because they've passed away, but I know their kids or their grandkids. And it's just like, oh man. So then I can call David Lowen and be like, seriously? And he'd be like, oh yeah, I remember my grandma talking about that. And so like, I can go back and like get more stories from around here. I've found it fascinating when you look at like where everybody came from. We have Dr. Charles A. Flippen, who is, when you look at Weeby's Prairie on the City, and he talks about the original families that settled. Dr. Flippen is listed as one of those. He was an African-American doctor in the
That practiced in
18.
Hillsborough.
we actually missed out on a major medical college and medical hospital practice because of racism. And,
He did a few naughty things, but
well,
it's
some of
pretty
it was
significant
driven
that,
from race-
okay,
racism as
in the
well.
1870s, we had an African-American doctor here.
Yeah.
His son was the first African-American player for Nebraska football, so that's pretty cool stuff.
And he
Wow.
had people from Missouri who would travel here.
Yeah, well, even further than
be
that,
treated by
sometimes
him.
to be treated by
Goshen,
him.
Indiana, which I got all excited at 11:40 at night, Stacy, and woke my husband up in bed to tell him that because we moved here from Goshen, Indiana.
Oh,
which just-
really?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's where we were before. So it was like, and so there's a lot of history. And then, okay, we're Scottish. When we got married, all the men wore kilts. We did all. John Hill immigrated here from Scotland. And you just, so some of that, and so it's really interesting.
This is so interesting to me, but that he's technically considered mulatto, or they referred to him as mulatto, but he was actually born into slavery. And his father was the slave owner and his mother was a slave. And so he received his father's name, I believe. And we're not sure of the line of heritage of the mothers because slaves were not, they often used just first names, if any written names. And so we don't know that, other than eventually from Africa, likely his mother, but it's interesting, the ancestors and then the descendants and the traits they shared from medical doctors
Absolutely.
to poetry.
Well, it's really interesting. He was released from slavery. He fought in the Civil War. When he joined the army for the Civil War, he signed his signature with an X. They had a captain who led a unit of African-American soldiers, and he taught them all how to read and write. So you think about the fact that he was born into slavery, he was emancipated, he joined the army, couldn't read or write, and became a doctor. That's pretty
Yes.
huge.
And practiced.
Well, and he
He
was a
was-
farmer and he was also known
His
for
neighbors with John Hill.
I
his
think
agriculture.
Wow.
I think Peggy Gerson
maybe
has
you
done
don't
a
know
lot of work with
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah.
I think I
That's
think
huge.
she said that he
It is.
even learned to speak German.
He did.
Yes, because many of the Mennonites were less racist, some weren't, especially the silk factory manager.
Yes.
But most of them were more polite and willing to use him for medical needs. So most of his clientele was actually Mennonites who he sold his land to, some of my ancestors.
Yeah,
And
he-
his son was the first African-American, I think maybe at all, on the Nebraska University football team. And not only that, but they promoted him and he was their first captain of the team and his son became a doctor as well.
So
And
it's a really interesting history.
he also had like 5 wives because he was handsome and rich and all that.
And aren't you going to be doing some articles in the
I
free
am,
press
and
to help share this history?
we are, I have met with, and please don't laugh because Matt told me I was making this up. But I have met with Dr. Looney. He's the history professor at Tabor. So I went to Dr. Looney to talk about Dr. Flippen.
This doesn't check
Flippin'
out. It's all
Looney.
made up.
But we're going to hopefully be utilizing Tabor history students to start collecting oral histories because we have some people over there at Salem Parkside that have,
Yes.
great stories to tell, and we need to collect those.
We have a few like centenarians that are there as well that still have very good memories.
And we need to collect those. So, I mean, it's really important to me to collect the overall history. The buildings that we have, are going to be more limited in what we can display and what we can do, but I'm looking to potentially, and this is skipping all around, get the schoolhouse climate controlled because then we do have a display space. Right now we're really limited because that's not air conditioned or heated to the months that we can legitimately use that. If we get that climate controlled, then we can set up more of these type of displays and talk about some of these different things. If Matt would let me buy the Old Town building,
I'm not doing that either.
That would.
Oh, that really-
Yeah.
I'm
that would,
gonna turn that into a restaurant, so I
That is
appreciate
full
it.
of history.
That
It is.
That.
Bang.
Start a rumor just from that.
No. I'm not. doing it. I'm trying to get somebody else to do it, yeah.
How the rumor goes.
Well,
Yep.
I'll
But-
meet you after the meeting. and we'll-
There's just so much really interesting history that's involved with Hillsborough. Matt Groening's family came out of here and I heard the story about how they ended up out in British Columbia because they were here. And it's super fun stuff. And I want the people in town to know this. I want the kids in town to know this. I want people to come here and have something,
Yes.
be able to go home and go, oh my gosh, did you know this about Hillsborough? Did
We're
you?
Ned Flanders.
Yes.
But just to have that because, my kids are little museum rats and they talk about different museums we've been to and they have this really fond connection to those and the things that they've learned. And I think that's what we need to do.
When we've had
Us.
kids that come, even adults, but primarily kids that have come through the Adobe House. And we explain to them, this house used to be out in the country and it was brought here. Their perception so far has been somebody jacks it up because this is what they've seen going down
Right.
Hillsborough streets. They pick it up and they move it. And then when we explain to them, each brick was numbered and dismantled and then put back together like a puzzle. That concept is so foreign to them. And those are the things that they should be learning from us as the
Yes.
caretakers of this community.
So that's a really great segue. Can you give us the
I knew the 2-minute.
2 to 3 minute rundown of the Bartle House project and where that's
Oh,
at.
yeah.
Okay, for those of you that have been on the board, you're aware of the Bartle House project. I have met Ruth once. I've talked on the phone with her a number of times. I have looked at things from 1990 until now that have been proposed for this, which are all pretty outlandish as far as expense goes. Darren has done a mock-up. I made one and I didn't bring it because,
It's windy.
well, I'm not an artist.
Darren, our engineer.
Not
Darren.
Not just Darren.
The other
What?
Darren.
What my concept is, and I hope I'm supposed to be meeting with Ruth and Jill Hall this month, because they're kind of heading up this concept from the family side, is to take the stones, which we have, they're on pallets out behind the street department, get them down here, pour a concrete slab that would be the 18 by 27 feet that the house was, rebuild the front facade, staircase down on the side, use wrought iron piping to finish out just part of the framing. We would use the front windows to be able to, like, as a shadow box and be able to tell the H.C. Bartle story, because they're really important in this whole Mennonite thing. They were part of the original missionaries to China. They were in the French Creek area, which
That way.
That
Yeah,
way.
that way.
okay. So it's another significantly important part of our Mennonite heritage right in this area. Rebuilding the house as a whole, we could never let anyone in it because there's no way to make it ADA compliant. So essentially we would be building a shell. That doesn't seem as practical to me as this. I'm having, when Darren did the mock-ups for me, there's another window as you come around the step down, and I can have him do a step down on the other side and do a window on that side. So we would have more display case, or we could build in an outdoor display case. Then on the back side of the house, when you would come in, had been the cabinets, which I do have over in storage. They're not in great condition, but I have access to them where we can photograph and measure them. And I would like to rebuild those to put on that inside wall, just like they would have been in the house. And then our 5th graders who got permission to do the community garden, we can use that for some storage for the community garden things. Have a couple benches in the house where people can sit, but they will be able to look out over the pond, the adobe house. But we are going to tell the Bartle story. We're going to give, a legitimate life-sized mock-up of the house. It'll be a space that we will be able to use. And then I think in turn, we may end up, and we've just started talking about this concept, but potentially renaming that whole space that's there, possibly the Bartle Learning Campus, because they would be coming there to learn about the Bartles, to learn about the schoolhouse, to learn about the Mennonites, to learn about some of the gardening things. So that's kind of my Bartle House thought.
I love that. I love the Bartle Learning Campus and getting schools and students more involved. Because we have, what we've done recently with like my kids from the elementary, my 2 kids, is they get bused to go to other museums,
And they're not coming to
like
see
in
me.
Lindsberg, and spending like whole days there with like 60 other school buses there. And it would be neat to start doing some of that here, maybe just to start with just maybe Marion County students and go from there maybe.
Mhm.
The visitor center would still be the visitor center. It's just the campus around.
Yeah,
It
no,
kind of
I-
retains its name. It's just the campus. kind of
Mhm.
idea. Does
I
everybody
like
kind of
that
understand
idea.
what Kara means when we say we're going to build the front, and then
Yes,
it's essentially a kind of an open cut shell diagram in real life size, and so that you can walk in and see kind of what the space would have looked like, but it's not completely built out.
can you email that as well, so we can just see what your latest rendering of that is? Just, I'm just curious.
I can,
There's no roof on it.
Well, it'll have kind of a pitched roof on the front,
Yeah.
but it's open on the back, so.
but it would be
But
the
there's,
same dimensions. So, I mean, you'd have the 18 feet across the front that, or the 27 feet across the front that was, it was 18 deep. So you'd have that and the roof that would go up. And then, just like I said, a stair step down on the sides. But it would give you the idea of if you were to walk up the house and walk around it, what it would feel like.
I could see families coming to like take pictures there, like senior photos, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that would be a great photo prop is not the word, but yeah, a
And
place
again,
for
it's
photography.
another really important side of our Mennonite history here, because we do have a significant amount of Mennonites that became involved in the missionary field.
Right,
And, you know, this tells that story, and this gives us a way to show what, because from what I understand from my research, you have the adobe style houses that were built when the Mennonites came in, and then the limestone houses like the Polish Mennonites built when they came in. So this gives us the opportunity to represent that other style of housing for Mennonites in the area. On a scale that will allow people to understand the size and the concept, you know, kind of be able to go through it. Whereas if we were to build it as a straight shell, which I know has been one of the concepts, nobody can go in it. So you don't really get that inside feeling that you get from what I'm thinking.
this is skipping kind of back a little bit, but since our next meeting will be in a few months, and will our next meeting be prior to the sale or the auction?
Could be.
Could be.
I'm just thinking, I don't know what the structure is or how, like, are you allowed to spend money like for advertising and things for that? Or do we have to vote like to say, or, I mean, how is that working now?
So the auction company handles, that's part of kind of what they do.
Oh, they will handle
They promote
that
that,
for-
and it goes out to multiple states and.
So we don't have to like vote to say like, we would like
No.
to spend this amount of money for that, and, okay,
No.
I just wanted to,
Yeah, no, the museum or the auction will handle that, and I want to just make sure everybody understands that anything that's sold that is museum stuff goes right back into the museum's coffers. We've got a reserve fund set up for that, so that's
my husband.
specifically for
Looking at some of
museum
that.
stuff, and
Is it by AMPI?
Some of it
there's a lot
is.
Okay, I was wondering, I thought, well, it looks kind of cool just sitting there. I said, because he goes, well, what's the deal with that? I need this. And I said, I do not know. And I said, I
He
don't
Tell him
know.
to come to
can
the
buy it
auction.
all he
Okay.
wants. I
Well,
can tell you that in the storage units, because I've been out to look at the storage units, I think we have a second pedal organ, like what is in
Oh, wow.
the Shuffler house. I think we have another piano. It looked like multiple church pews. And so we have a lot of things, and obviously
Pulpits, we have pulpits.
we have pulpits galore, and I have actually,
Yeah.
I've returned 2 pulpits to their original churches
Now,
at
do you
this
really?
point.
Okay.
And the baptismal font that was part of the Lutheran church is back at the Lutheran church.
Okay.
So it, like I said, for me, it's a really big deal to get these things back where they belong. If a family has no interest in it and they give me permission to auction it, then I will do that. But I'm trying very hard to get things where they belong.
We've had Fern Bartle from Gossel. She works at the museum in Gossel. Her heritage was with one of the steamer trunks. She just about giggled when she realized that was her family's trunk.
Wow.
And now she
Oh, wow.
has it,
It's back at the museum.
and it's, yes.
Well,
the-
because that family settled in the Gossel area, not in the Hillsborough area. And so that went back over there. Now, they apparently have the washing machine that's really funky looking from the Shuffler basement, so I'm going to go and get that back. Because that's ours.
Yeah, well, that's nice. I think that's great that you're networking
Yeah.
with these other museums and maybe for
trying.
future events too. And the Marion one, I think you've already reached out to.
Yep,
as
Avery
well.
Wheeler is doing that. Jerry and Fern are at Gossel. I've been in touch with David at the Kaufman. Avery went to college with the person that's running the McPherson. So I'm trying to get all of us together because I think it would be really fantastic, you know, 2, 3, 4 times a year to try and do something on the same weekend where we're all open, because we're all in such a close circle, to try and do something like that. And when I was at the museum conference for KMA in November, there was a group that talked about a coalition they created out in Northwest Kansas, because when you're small, sometimes it's hard to come up with the funds for things, or getting bulk discounts are really difficult. And they went in and created a coalition, and then they were able to do that. So I'm kind of looking at what can we do with who's right around us? And because we share so much of the same history. And, you know, you look at Peabody, well, our Mennonites got off the train up there. Gossel is, you know, that's part of where when they settled in town, where part of our Mennonites went. Marion County's, or Marion's a mix of all of that. So we definitely need to make sure that we're all at least communicating and, you know, talking each other up at the very least.
The doodle bug, wasn't it called the doodle bug? Used to connect us in Marion, the little passenger train.
Yeah.
And
then
Irene
go back and forth
Seibel,
between Marion and Hillsborough
she was
on what's the
telling me
walking
she
path
turned,
now.
she's 99. She's almost 100, but I grew up next door to Irene Seibel and she's at assisted living. But she was telling me the only time she rode the doodle bug, because some people were so frugal, was on her wedding day, was to hide their vehicle so it wouldn't get, you know, vandalized by the wedding party. So they parked it several blocks away in Marion. So they rode the doodle bug and then rode it back to Hillsborough. Just one time, she said.
Nice.
Okay, so we're actually past our hour, and we want to try to keep it to an hour because I know everybody's got stuff to do. Is there any comments, questions, concerns we need to get out as a group before we?
I
Are
did want to
are we
touch,
making any, okay, go ahead.
no, I just wanted to touch on something that had been brought up earlier, that there's concern by certain individuals that we're throwing away good things. We have gotten rid of things that are totally full of mold, damaged beyond repair. So if anybody has any questions within the community and they come to you, bring them out. We'll show them what we have.
And the mold, like you said about the book mold, that's really like contagious, like COVID in a way, like it can reach and grab onto other books and spread. So you really have to contain when you find that. And so you're not just burning books or burning Mennonite history or anything like that. You're
No.
just trying to contain things that are damaged and protect what's left, what's there.
I'm a librarian. Getting rid of books is not in me. But unfortunately, because book mold is so contagious, there are a couple of things that are probably from the early 1700s that I have kept, but they are double bagged and in completely separate boxes, even from each other, so that there's no chance they can infect anything else.
Yeah.
I think it seems like the last position that we had on this is that tour groups income was voluntary donations. We were not charging.
That's what I'm doing right now. Most of the people that stop by are the smaller groups that have been in are leaving a donation, and they are leaving more than I would have gotten if I had charged them. I'm not charging any school groups. I don't charge any of the school kids that stop by to see me, even because right now I just want people down there. I want people coming in and out, and I want people talking about it. Eventually, we'll have to probably take a look at that, but I want people coming in right now.
We don't have any, we never really had a real functioning store, but we're not really selling anything. in the
Not right
store.
now.
Yeah. okay.
Stacy has sent me some things and I need to look at that, but my focus has been trying to learn the history and deal with the excessive inventory that we have right now, but I do have a plan for that. And I've discussed that with Matt, and Stacy has, and Sue have a pretty good idea of kind of what I've been thinking about. But right now, we've got to get through all this inventory. And so that's been the majority of my focus now.
Do we need to pick the date of the next meeting, or do you just want to email us what works?
You want to meet in April? We're going to have the auction at the end of April. And so we could meet sometime in April for your second quarter meeting. We're a little late in the first quarter this time, but if that works, I can send out some dates to everybody and we can kind of go from there. See, that'd be good to meet before the auction, because we'll have a list of everything that is going into auction. And so we can
Okay.
take a look at that.
So the auction will be mostly staffed by the auction company or will
I
there?
don't think there'll be need for us to volunteer or anything like
Okay.
that at this point.
Okay,
We'll just kind of see how it
sounds
goes.
good.
I don't
I
know.
think it's a great thing and lots of work, as my grandma Harriet would say, and her mom was born in the adobe house, but she would say to both of you ladies that you've covered a lot of ground. That's what she'd say.
Stacy, can we meet on a Tuesday or Wednesday
Yeah, we can do that. No problem.
evening like this?
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, no problem, Leroy. We can do that.
Maybe, we can take a look at the city books, the
We'll
schedule
have to
for
look
the
at
room. and-
schedule. Yeah, we'll have to look at the schedule, so. Okay. Anything
Okay,
else for the
thank
good,
you.
good of the order before we call it a night?
I just appreciate this and I think this is great the way it's set up with Sue and Kara and more involvement with the city and getting these major projects done of cleaning and organizing and
Yeah,
I think and with the Bartle House, I think I'm excited. So,
I will just say one thing. I find it ironic when I clean the adobe house, I'm cleaning up dirt and dust in a house made from dirt and dust.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if nobody has anything else, we'll call it an evening. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Can I read it?
yeah, and when you're done, how about pass it